The news today that Boris Johnson turns out had a party of at least 40 people in the garden of Downing Street. 100 were invited, and this was during the height of the lockdown restrictions in May of 2020. What to say about this? I think that it's a real sign that the standard of political conversations, the standard of leaders have declined over the last 20 years. And I think it's interesting that it was very quick timing from when Tony Blair was given the highest honour of knighthood for the honour of being Prime Minister from 1997 onwards. And I think that partly it's to do with the lack of opposition. I think Labour have been completely absent from playing a substantial role in politics since Cameron. But I also think that the fact that the Tories are becoming very complacent about the fact that they're assuming they're going to be in power. Yes, they've had a couple of problems with the by-elections, but I think Boris Johnson and the Conservative government are so confident that Labour is so woefully inadequate that they are doing things like shutting down the entire country while they're having parties in the garden of Downing Street. I think the reason why I wanted to bring this up was I think the last 2 years have taught us many things. One is that the institution of the government is inadequate. Everything they've done over the last 2 years has been an utter and complete failure. It shows that there is situations where the private sector can do much better. The private sector are the ones that researched the COVID vaccines. And now a lot of people might say, yes, but the government gave it the funding and the government then distributed it. But my question to those people that argued that would be, but what would have happened if instead of the government investing in that and crowding out private investment, what happened if that was left to private individuals? And in fact, also, what would have happened if the government hadn't intervened and stopped people having their freedoms? I got back from Stockholm last week. In Stockholm, they had zero restrictions, apart from a few things like suggesting people didn't come out of their house. When I went there in January, there was no restrictions, apart from you had to sit down in a club or a bar. There were no masks, there was no COVID passes, there was no lockdowns, there was no people patrolling the streets like I've seen in other countries. Contrast that to Switzerland. I was in Switzerland before Stockholm. Switzerland, you have to show a QR code of your COVID pass. You then have to show an ID, and they scan your COVID pass and they have a look at your ID and they compare the two. So the thing I think for people to note is that the government, it's not particularly the Conservative Party, the government system in general is inadequate. And I think the really important thing is to make sure that your finances, the way you structure your life and everything you do, and this channel is about business, make sure that you structure your life so you never, ever need to depend on the government. Do not depend on the government to look after you when you're old. Don't depend on them to look after you when you're sick, and don't depend on them to look after your family either. So that's my very optimistic rant for the day. Please like and subscribe. Just trying to figure out what this channel is. It's basically me ranting. So I hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.